I'm spending the month of January, if you will, in the book of Proverbs. And the series is entitled Wise Words to Live By. And today I want to talk about the need to watch our words. Many years ago, when I was still active in serving at church camp, we had one of those staff versus campers water balloon fight. Now, some of the staff were kind of like stodgy. They didn't want to play the game. And so they kind of stood on the porch of the staff cabin, and they watched, kind of like in the valley below, all the war that was going on. Well, I've always considered myself one of those guys that wants everybody to be involved. So I kind of took another staff member and snuck over to the side of the staff cabin that was covered by some trees and some bush. And as the war waged down below, I made sure to include those staff members and who didn't want to join in by making sure that some of the water balloons that I had were sort of lobbed on the porch in an effort to get them as wet as what was going on downstairs. Now, our water grenades were small, and yet they had the ability to either cause delight or destruction, depending on how they were used. I happen to believe that in such the same way, our words have the same power. Our words can bring joy, or they can bring despair. Words can hurt, or they can heal. They can devastate, or they can delight. Last week, I challenged you to take one chapter a day in the book of Proverbs. I'm hoping that some of you have taken me up on that. Last week, we had a conversation about how we needed to develop a fear of the Lord. And my theme last Sunday was to be wise in God's eyes. Let's revere and draw near in this new year. Psalm 34:11 through 13 tells us that God wows us. When he wows us, we'll watch our words. In other words, he says, "Come, O children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. What man is there who desires life and loves many days that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit." And I think Proverbs has an awful lot to say about what we say as it refers to our tongue, our mouth, or our lips, over 150 times in 31 chapters. My primary text this morning is from Proverbs 18:21. It says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits." Our words will either launch life or they'll deliver death. Everything you said this week either assassinated or invigorated the people around you, because words have the power to heal, to help, to hinder, to hurt, to harm, to humiliate, and to humble. So I'd like to try a little exercise. Could you please stick out your tongue? Can you see your tongue when you stick it out? Can anybody see their? I can't ever see my tongue. Either my nose is too big or my cheeks are too puffy. I'm not sure what it is. But I want you to notice how small our tongues are. But did you realize it's actually the most powerful force in the world? I want you to look at someone next to you and I want you to say these words. Death and life are in the power of your tongue. Death and life are in the power of your tongue. I want to personalize Proverbs 18:21. I want us together to use the word my and I. We're going to put it on the wall. I want you to repeat this out loud with me. Death and life are in the power of my tongue, and I will eat its fruit. Here's the decision I want each of us to make as a result of this morning's message. It's my big idea for the day. I will use my tongue to launch life instead of delivering death. The first thing we see in Proverbs 18:21 is the phrase, the power of the tongue. And this is the word for strength. During World War II, the government printed posters that showed a battleship sinking in the ocean with 4 words at the bottom of the image. Loose lips sink ships. And because there were spies all around, sailors had to be careful when they were in port. Those who talked too much could literally lose their life and put thousands in danger. Maybe today, in the day of social media, we might need to change that to things like tweets sink fleets, or post are not the most. Words are powerful for at least 3 reasons. First, words are everywhere. According to researchers, on an average day, we open our mouth and speak 700 times, using at least 7,000 words. Unless you're like me, and it's probably 14,000 words. Interestingly, one study found we only use about 700 words that have actual value. If we speak this much, and some of us get that many words in before breakfast, we're bound to say something that brings death to someone else. No wonder Jesus said in Matthew 12:37, "For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." Second, words penetrate within. Proverbs 12:18 says, "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." Our tongues torpedo relationships and they ambush reputations. And like a sword, our speech can lacerate a life in matters of seconds. The things we say can either bring emotional life or emotional death to others. Proverbs 12:25 says, "Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad." Think of a time when someone spoke exactly the right words at the right time. Now think of a time when someone spoke recklessly. Some of us remember words that sliced through our souls decades ago. And the third thing is that words spread far and wide. We say a lot of words and they go deep. They also get spread far and wide. Proverbs 16:27 says, "A worthless man plots evil, and his speech is like a scorching fire." Perhaps you've experienced the pain that comes from a rumor that spreads like wildfire. No fun, is it? Words don't just evaporate once they're spoken. They're like burning embers that engulf an entire forest. Someone once said, words have tremendous power for good and evil. They take on a life of their own and they hang out there forever. Words are powerful. Proverbs 18:21 says they are either used for life or death. Let's say this again. "I will use my tongue to launch life instead of delivering death." Now let's consider some ways that we deliver death through toxic talk. When I was growing up, I remember hearing those catchy phrases that made a lot of sense, like "people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones," or "a rolling stone gathers no moss." There was another popular saying, maybe it's even used today, the old "sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." That's not true, is it? Broken bones can heal, but words can wound and break our hearts. We've all used venomous verbs and noxious nouns that have been on the receiving end of those words as well. Proverbs lists several examples of how the tongue can be used to hurt, to destroy, or to kill. One of those is simply gossip. Proverbs 20:19 says, "Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler." Proverbs 18:8 tells us some people feed on gossip like others enjoy food. It says the words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. The Living Bible offers this paraphrase. It says, "What dainty morsels rumors are, they are eaten with great relish." Gossip is usually fun and interesting, but when we feed on gossip, we'll always crave more. Reminds me of the person who was gossiping about someone in the church, and when the friend asked a question to get more juicy details, his buddy replied, "I've already told you more than I know." Remember this. The person who gossips to you will gossip about you. Number 2, angry words. Some of you have experienced pain from being around someone who spews this volcanic verbiage. Proverbs 29:22 says, "A man of wrath stirs up strife, and one given to anger causes much transgression." Number 3, lying. Proverbs 6:17 says, "A lying tongue is one of the 6 things that God hates." Proverbs 12:19 adds, "Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment." Number 4 is flattery. Most of us secretly enjoy flattery, but Proverbs warns us to be on our guard against those who sweet talk. Proverbs 29:5 says, "A man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet." A flatterer is one who pats you on the back today only to locate a soft spot where he can insert a knife tomorrow. Number 5 is impulsive speech. Proverbs 29:20 says, "Do you see a man who is hasty in his words? There is more hope for a fool than for him." We've all experienced the horror of saying something too quickly as we open mouth and insert foot. Words are powerful because they can inflame or they can encourage. They can be used to bring death, and they can also resuscitate a floundering life. We can belittle or we can bless. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits." Let's say this again. Say this with me. I will use my tongue to launch life instead of delivering death. Now, we've considered how our words can deliver death. Now let's look at how our tongues can launch life. Proverbs gives us 3 word pictures of life. One is refreshing water. Proverbs 10:11 says, "The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life." When we listen to wise words, it's like taking a long drink of a fresh spring water on a hot summer day. 2, it's described as tasty food. Proverbs 16:24, "Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body." You see, honey was both a luxury and a medicine in ancient Israel. When we talk tenderly with others, our words become priceless, and they provide healing to broken hearts. And then the third description is its expensive jewelry. Proverbs 21:11 and 12 says, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Like a gold ring or an ornament of gold is a wise reprover to a listening ear. Like an expert jeweler, our words should be balanced just right. Beautiful in their appearance and as valuable as gold and silver. Unfortunately, we don't always use our words wisely. Have you ever been hung by your tongue? Listen again to Proverbs 18:21. "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Let's focus on that phrase, "eat its fruits," because in a real sense, you and I eat our words. And let's make sure that what we say is delicious and nutritious. After reading through the book of Proverbs, I made a list of the top 10 tongue-taming tools. Say that 10 times fast. We could also call it how to avoid slipping with your speech, or how to stop trespassing with your tongue. Proverbs 21:23 challenges us to be careful about our conversations. "He who guards his mouth and tongue keeps himself from calamity." 1, think more. Most of my mouth mistakes are made because I simply don't engage my mind first. I'm Exhibit A for the truth of Proverbs 12:18. Rash words are like sword thrusts. When I say something is unkind to Denise, it's usually because I've not spent any time thinking about what I should say. Instead, I'll let things fly out of my mouth. Proverbs 15:28 in the NASB challenges us to think before we answer. "The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things." And we could say it like this. We need to ponder before we pour. When we engage our minds, we'll avoid messing up with our mouths. Sometimes it's best not to answer at all, according to 26:4. "Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him yourself." So before you answer, don't be afraid to hit the pause button. Speak when you're angry, and you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret. It might be helpful to get in the habit of taking a deep breath so that you can reflect before you respond. Number 2, talk less. Our chances of blowing it with our words are directly related to the amount of time we spend with our mouth open. The Quakers follow this maxim: never break the silence unless you can improve on it. Or Abraham Lincoln was fond of saying, "It is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt." Proverbs 10:19 says it like this: "When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent." And the more we talk, the more we trespass. The less we talk, the wiser we are. One of my favorite proverbs is 17:28. "Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent." Ecclesiastes 3:7 says there's a time to be silent and a time to speak. Proverbs 13:3 links our lips to our life in a very unsettling way. It says, "Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. I'm going to ask you to stick out your tongue and, if you will, just kind of grab it. It's kind of hard to do. 7 situations when it's good to hold your tongue. For instance, when you're tempted to say, I told you so. Or when you have information that makes someone look bad. Or when someone is upset about a problem and you've had a similar experience. Or when you're tempted to judge or criticize someone. Or when you want to correct someone on a minor point as they tell a story. Or when someone has not asked for your opinion. Or when you want to tell something about yourself in order to impress someone. If you struggle with talking too much like I do, let me encourage you to build some wordless moments into your day, which leads to the next tongue-taming suggestion: listen better. Someone has said the reason we've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth is so that we would listen twice as much as we talk. Proverbs 15:31 says, the ear that listens to life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. Or 19:20 that says, listen to advice and accept instruction that you may gain wisdom in the future. It's tough to hear someone tell us something we don't want to hear, but it's really the only way to become wise. Have you been blowing off someone's advice recently? As hard as it is, take the time to listen to what God is trying to tell you to the individuals who care about you. One of my problems is I'm not often fully engaged when I'm talking to someone. Instead, and you probably do the same thing, I'm often formulating my answer even while the person is pouring out their heart. Proverbs 18:13 says, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. Or like this little ditty I found. A wise old owl lived in an oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we all be like the wise old bird? Number 4, encourage others. Do you realize that there are people all around who are discouraged and defeated? God can use your words to breathe life into a person who is piled on by life's problems. Proverbs 15:4 says, a gentle tongue is a tree of life. How many of your words this week were words of encouragement? How many sentences were devoted to helping lift anxious hearts? Let me ask you this. If you were paid 10 cents for every kind word you said this week and had to give away 5 cents for every critical comment, would you be rich or poor today? Someone has said it takes no size to criticize. And I would add it takes a big person to encourage. And one way you can tell if you're an encourager or a discourager is to honestly ask if people like being around you. Are you the kind of person others are glad to see coming into the room, or do they kind of turn their face away when they see you? Let's work at inserting an encouraging word into every conversation we have this week. Number 5, speak gently. One of the best ways to evaporate anger from your conversation is to work at being calm. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The next time you're talking to someone who is really torqued, instead of responding in turn, give an answer. Let's work this week at getting our point across without raising our voices. We'll be much more effective, according to Proverbs 25:15. With patience, a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue will break a bone. Harness the power of a gentle word. As someone has said, keep your words soft and sweet. You never know when you may have to eat them. Number 6, cut others some slack. Most of us are way too tough on others. As a dad, I was way too tough on our guys. We expect perfection from people while minimizing our own mistakes. We grow our grudges instead of giving grace. If you want to tame your tongue and give life to others, then practice the principles found in 12:16. The vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. Or Proverbs 19:11 that says, good sense makes one slow to anger. It is to his glory to overlook an offense. Or 17:9 that says, he who covers over an offense promotes love, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. Number 7, we kind of touched on this, avoid gossip. Someone has said a gossip is just a fool with a keen sense of rumor. Proverbs 11:13 says, whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. I need to know that my name is safe when I'm out of the room, if you're in the room, and you need to know that your name is safe with me as well. Remember this rule about gossip. The more interesting it is, the more likely it is to be false. And one of the best ways to avoid gossip is to simply refuse to listen to it. 17:4 says, an evildoer listens to wicked lips, and a liar gives ear to a mischievous tongue. When someone is sharing something juicy with you, tell him or her that you don't want to hear it. If they have an issue with someone, they need to go and talk to that person, not talk to you about that person. Another thing we can do is to reroute the conversation by sharing something positive about the person being raked over the coals. When you hear something speaking against someone, then speak for that person. Number 8, tell the truth. It's important to be known as a truth teller, no matter the situation or cost involved. Proverbs 12:17 says, whoever speaks the truth gives honest evidence, but a false witness utters deceit. People value those who speak truth, even when it hurts. Proverbs 16:13 says, righteous lips are the delight of a king, and he loves him who speaks what is right. Sometimes God calls us to speak truth into others. In Proverbs, this is known as a rebuke or a correction. 17:10, a rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows into a fool. Or 27:6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. Don't hold back on truth-telling, but remember to do it gently and with the goal of encouraging the individual. Proverbs also mentions the importance of telling the truth to those who need to know the way of salvation. Proverbs 10:21 says, the lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of sense. That means you can use your lips to help bring spiritual nourishment to people by pointing them to a relationship with Jesus Christ. Proverbs 11:30 says, the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who wins souls is wise. Number 9, stop boasting. It's not attractive to hear someone brag or boast, is it? Proverbs 25:27, it is not good to eat much honey, nor is it glorious to seek one's own glory. Honey is good, but it's pretty tough to sit and drink a quart of it, isn't it? When you sing your own praise, you always sing out of tune. And if you feel the need to honk your own horn, then you may have a problem with boasting. Instead of seeking your own name and lights, focus on God's honor, and he'll take care of you. When you feel yourself starting to talk about what you've done, look for ways to quickly give credit to others. And then number 10, don't quarrel. Proverbs 17:14, the beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the quarrels break out. We would have a lot more peace in families and in churches if we would just refuse to quarrel with others. Instead of engaging in disagreements that can turn into a tidal wave of conflicts, let's work at dropping the matter before dispute breaks out. It says in 23, it's an honor for a man to keep aloof from strife, but every fool will be quarreling. Let's close with some action steps. Number 1, make things right with others. If you've trespassed with your tongue, it's time to make it right. Do you need to repent and go to someone today and ask for forgiveness for something you've said? Or do you need to grant forgiveness to someone for something that was said to you? Take care of this today and then keep short accounts with people on a daily basis. Number 2, yield your tongue to God. In fact, Romans 6 says, do not present your members to sin as instruments for unrighteousness, but present yourselves to God as those who have been brought from death to life, and your members to God as instruments for righteousness. Maybe you could pray this prayer. Lord, my tongue now belongs to you. Here are my lips, let me speak for you. Here is my mouth, let my mouth speak the words that you want. Maybe close with Psalm 141:3. Set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Number 3, be a part of the solution. When we intentionally engage by trying to help, it's much harder to be negative about something. Number 4, feast on the word. The last part of Proverbs 18:21 says, we will eat the fruit of our words. And one of the best ways to change our heart, to make sure that our speech is nutritious, is to digest the word of God on a daily basis. When God wanted to use the words of the prophet Ezekiel, he was given specific instructions. It says, So I opened my mouth, and he gave me this scroll to eat. And he said to me, Son of man, feed your belly with this scroll that I give you, and fill your stomach with it. Then I ate it, and it was in my mouth as sweet as honey. Or Psalm 119:11, I have stored your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. And when God's words are in our heart, we'll be more likely to speak wise words to others. Number 5, ask for a new heart. If we want to stop using death words and begin speaking words of life, we not only need to make things right with others and yield our tongues to God, we may in fact need a different heart. The good news is that Jesus specializes in heart transplants. Only God can give us the power we need to build others up instead of tearing us down. What we need to do is Romans 10:9. If we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in our hearts that God raised him from the dead, we will be saved. For with the heart one believes and is justified, and with the mouth one confesses and is saved. Pastor tells a story that when he was a boy, his mother would make him stick out his tongue whenever she thought he was lying. He said that she claimed that she could tell by looking at where his tongue was attached to the back of his mouth. As he grew older, he understood that she was just making it up, but says now, I realize there's great truth to that, because our tongues are actually connected to our hearts. Jesus gives us insight. He says, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And he says, for out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, and slander. Our words are but the public pronouncement of the private place of our hearts. What comes out of our mouths reveal what's in our hearts. Another way to say it is this: our words reflect our true character. I was going to bring a water balloon and see if anybody was going to catch it, as I lobbed it out in the church, but I didn't find a balloon at the house. But let me ask you this: are you launching life or delivering death with the words that you say? Will you say this one more time with me? I will use my tongue to launch life instead of delivering death. Will you pray with me? Father, we have that option each and every moment of our lives. We can either launch life or we can deliver death. Help us, oh Father, every day to choose to launch life. And may we take what your word says in Proverbs to live a life that helps us live that very way. Your words are wonderful. They give life, and I pray that we will use them for your glory. In Christ's name I ask this. Amen.